Looking at UK stories, I think this might be the biggest story of the day right here. Nearly 4 million on sickness benefits because it's still post-COVID. And what has happened is, and maybe a lot of mental health in here, but essentially we are heading towards a point where 1 in 5 people of working age in the country can't work because they're sick. And sick would be things that are preventable: obesity, bad back, bit of depression in there as well, mental health stuff, just stuff that we should be able to stop.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, to me, the barometer is always the self-employed. Anybody who has been self-employed, and everybody from that's run a little corner shop to maybe the head of some kind of huge organisation, if you don't work, you don't earn. And I've known so many self-employed people, and I include myself in a modest way, because I've been self-employed for a long time now, is you crawl over hot coals to get to work. A, because you like doing it, B, because if you don't work, you don't earn. There's no cycle of welfare dependency that you can get into. And I think amongst this 4 million, there will be very genuine cases of all the things that you've said, people who are very poorly or who do have significant issues.
Oh, of course, if they got motor neuron disease
that
or something.
stymie their ability to work, yeah. But equally, I think we've almost sort of created a carrot and stick situation in certain scenarios whereby, yes, the structure and the protocol and the understanding is there, so people take that route.
So the thing is, does the government then get stuck in and say we've got to prevent this?
Well, I think they have to, surely. I mean, you get to the point where money's clearly being wasted left, right and centre on there are going to be people, like you're saying, that don't need it. They're taking their time off because they know that they can trick the system. And I mean, it's so difficult. Things like pain and everything else, that's such a hard thing to judge, I guess, because we all feel things very differently. But fundamentally, there are people who will be out there tricking the system. And you have to go through a process, surely, rather than just calling in and just going, well, I can't do it now, I'm going to have to take some time off and you have to pay for it. Has to be a system put in place to stop it happening. Because it's such a drain.
It's tricky because is obesity a choice? Or is, if you're too large to get out the house and do a job, is that because you've been a victim of what is called an obesogenic environment? You've been attacked by donuts.
This is a very controversial thing today, and it's not something I said. My friend, her late father was a gastric surgeon, and he said nobody obese ever came out of any of the prison camps of the Second World War, the Japanese work camps, whatever. When you don't eat enough, then you lose weight. Now that's a very extreme.
No, I've heard that said with reference
and to all sorts of things. And I know it's a very difficult thing to put your head around, and those are extreme circumstances brought on by cruelty. But the fact is that there are people that have an addictive relationship to food. Some people just simply, and one very, very prominent epidemiologist that I interviewed a few years ago for one of the papers just said it's literally a question of calorie exchange. If you eat less, then you won't put on weight.
When in the 60s, they did a big study. The senators in the USA said, why are so many people fat in this country? And they did they brought people in to be interviewed. And they discovered that largely people who were huge were poor, right? And therefore, by definition, they weren't able to afford lots and lots of food. So it wasn't to do with quantity, it was to do with quality, the type of food. Yeah. And particularly, they got obsessed with these people in the Appalachian Mountains who got very little, but were all obese. And they realised they'd gone into what they called metabolic failure, where every single thing that you were eating was being stored as fat.
Yeah.
And you maybe come down to the same thing. Well, but it isn't about gluttony necessarily.
No, not necessarily, but there is an issue of if you burn more than you eat, then you will. I mean, look at both of you are pretty spare because you are athletic. You know,
no, I'm not athletic. I literally, since I came back from my summer holidays, I decided to stop eating crap, actually.
Oh, OK. But before...
Sorry, Greg, because you're the expert on diet.
No, you've never been overweight, Jack.
No, I was in August.
Education is the most important thing with all of this. That fundamentally, if you speak to people generally about food, what they're taking in and consumption, they actually do not understand the difference between different foods that are out there. So, for example, if you're saying to somebody, and of course cost plays a major part in this, you can go and eat a turkey breast, for example, or a turkey Twizzler. To a lot of people, they look at something and think, well, it's the same thing. That's where I'm going to get my protein from, and it costs a lot less. What you're not understanding is all of the processed rubbish that you're putting into your system and what that does for you. I mean, the sort of glycemic spikes everything else that you put in from eating different things. What that does, sending your body into storage mode. It's so commonplace. People don't realise.
Willpower thing,
No,
though,
there is a
isn't
willpower. I think you've got to learn to be. Well, I know why we're telling you about this. You know everything about it. My theory at the age of 59 is you've got to learn to be hungry. You've got to be hungry between meals. You mustn't, at the first sign of hunger, go for a biscuit or a snack.
Yeah.
You've got to make yourself hungry by exercising and then not eat. And it is actually a bit difficult.
I've just been writing about all-inclusive hotels, and I've just been abroad to one very lovely hotel, but I was doing a piece on it for one of the papers. And all-inclusive is you can eat whatever you like. You can wake up in the morning, it's a bit like being on cruise ships. You can wake up with your mouth open and it's like the old steam trains, it's shoveled in until you go to bed. And it was fascinating watching what people had on their plates. They'd have a combination of chocolate truffles, some pasta, because they're just taking everything.
It's there, so you have it.
They should be banned. I mean, there's no question all-inclusive hotels should be made illegal because that's part of the problem here. Because you feel I'm not getting value unless I go to bed full every night.
Could you add, though, like a waste tax? So I know this has been talked about
waste,
before.
what, as in?
So, no. So if you go into an all-inclusive, and if you don't eat your food, because a lot of people as well just sort of waste a lot of it, they just pile on. If you were concerned about what you put in, because you think about it more then, right?
But I did go to an all-inclusive in June as well. Everyone there was thin. I couldn't work it out. And I reckon they were using the deal to tantalise themselves and then not eating.
Unless they were habitual all-inclusivers. He's strange.
Okay.
Accept it, Greg. He's just...
Okay. No, I did go to one and I thought, I've got to not do the thing, which is that everything's free, so eat it.
There were just
ridiculous.
some...
Okay, look, we need to move on. Sorry, it's so interesting talking about diet.